let's talk about the team that gave Debo his sadness, the Dallas Cowboys. And I want to apologize. I got a lot of apologies to get through over the next 4 or 5 weeks to Mike McCarthy, because I didn't think Mike McCarthy was telling the truth when he said he took a year off and did the PFF tour and had a lot of introspection sitting by the lake, looking at the swans. But apparently, Breach, he did all those things. He might be the running for coach of the year. Dak Prescott is definitely the running for MVP. I'm sure Brinson will tell us the odds momentarily. I would imagine he's the front runner. We know the 49ers, who the 49ers are, and we'll get to them in a second. But explain to me who is beating the Dallas Cowboys at home, who are now the number 2 seed in the NFC.
Well, and that's the crazy thing is no one. I mean, they're not just undefeated at home. They're blowing everyone out. They're winning all of these games by double digits. And like you just said with Dak Prescott and the MVP talk, I think it's got to be absolutely real. Look, I'm not going to sit here and toot my horn and say I was the only person who had Dak Prescott as my preseason MVP at plus 2,500, but I was. And
all right,
this is why he looks so comfortable now running this offense. And I think a part of it, we didn't see Brandon Cooks make many contributions at the beginning of the season. He's been kind of roping him in. Jake Ferguson had a big night, 5 catches, 72 yards. Michael Gallup, he's using all of his weapons, obviously CeeDee Lamb there. And that's what it takes. He is fully embracing Mike McCarthy's offense. And this team is just 1,000% better than it was in October when they got railroaded by the 49ers.
The Dallas Cowboys are now at home, 7-0 on the season. Do you know what their point differential is at home this year?
It's in the millions.
It's not that far away. It's plus 171 points at home in 7 games. That is outrageous. So you're talking about they are winning these home games by an average of 24.4 points per game. The only one that's been remotely close was the Thursday night game last week against Seattle when both teams had that rest and because they played on Thanksgiving. Dak is, in fact, the MVP favorite, plus 175 now. I see over at DraftKings, they do a great job of updating those ASAP. Brock Purdy closely behind him at 2-1. Lamar Jackson 4.5-1. Jalen Hurts 5-1, and then Mahomes and Tua at 10-1. Tyreek 13. Christian McCaffrey 20. And I think that if you were, doing I think Lamar and Dak would be the two. The two guys that I would look at, like I think if Dak can get the 1 or the 2 seed, win the division, I think they probably have to win the division. Although with the Cowboys, I think you could possibly get away with not winning the division, maybe, and Dak getting it because they're the Cowboys. Is that possible?
No, they don't win the MVP typically, so I don't know if that helps. I mean, Breach has the rule about, it's not his rule, it's actually the way the league unfolds about the MVP has to win the division. Do you still hold by that, Breach?
I mean, I would, because who's going to get the number 1 seed if it's the 49ers? Brock Purdy's doing some absurd things statistically that we haven't seen in years. But is Dak going to get that love from playing for America's team? I don't think that's that crazy of a theory, Brinson. But I would say Brock Purdy, maybe the odds don't reflect that, would be his number 1 competition right now. I mean, he had a career day today that we'll talk about later.
I feel like every week is a career day for Brock Purdy. Let me ask you this, Brinson, because this is something that our buddy Joe Musso and I talked about earlier this evening. Typically, there's a moment or moments in the Cowboys season where you go, yep, there's Mike McCarthy and up. There's Dak Prescott throwing stupid interceptions. We have seen none of that this year. Mm-hmm. And you could argue that their biggest gaffe, and Breach, you have a memory for these things, so you can correct me, was finding a way to lose that game in week 9 to the Eagles, a game they probably should have won. But it feels like this team is hitting on all cylinders finally for Jerry Jones. And a big part of that's the defense balling out. But Dak Prescott has made very few mistakes. Mike McCarthy has reinvented himself as a play caller. Maybe Kellen Moore was the problem, which is nuts to say. But are you concerned at all that there's some hiccup unforeseen in the Dallas Cowboys future that history might suggest is on its way? Because I don't see it. Brinson.
No, I mean, I don't think that. I think what you have to give credit to. I mean, they're playing at the Bills next week. I wouldn't be surprised if they went to Buffalo and lost that game. Buffalo looked like a much different team coming out of their bye against Kansas City. We'll get to that in a minute. And then they're at the Dolphins. So that's your hiccup, I guess, is having to go to Buffalo, then having to go to Miami. They haven't been great on the road. We're talking about 3-3 on the season. They are 6-2 out of the division, 3-2 outdoors this season. And again, you look at the losses though. They got stomped at San Francisco in that primetime game, and San Francisco just got up for that. San Francisco has made it very clear they want to dominate some of these other, like they dominated the Cowboys, they dominated the Eagles, wanted to send a statement to the rest of the division. The Cowboys lost that game at Philly as well, but that game could have easily been a Dallas win. Like that was a really close game. And then you have at the Cardinals game that they lost, where like they were just clearly, coming off the 70 point differential from the first two games, looking ahead past the Cardinals. So I think all their losses, the three losses, sort of make sense from that perspective. So I don't think they're to go in there and like stumble. I think they'll bring their A game. They could go 0-2 in those games just because they're difficult matchups against two quality teams, although the Dolphins haven't beaten anybody. Then you have the Lions at home and the Commanders on the road to close out. So I think you can make a case that while they might not stumble, the Eagles get the Giants twice, the Cardinals once, and then the Seahawks next week. So even if the Cowboys don't stumble per se, I still think you look at the Eagles and say they have a much better chance at winning the division. This is not a great loss, but they're 72% according to the Upshot to win the NFC East, whereas the Cowboys just 28%.
And that's like that.
Does this team feel different?
Absolutely. Cowboys? They're playing with swagger. Like they expected to win this game. The Cowboys are usually the laughing stock of the country after they play a team with a winning record because they usually lose.
Right. We
saw it against the 49ers and they lost 42-10. We saw it when the Eagles game that Brinson mentioned, when they lost 28-23. And this team is carrying themselves differently. They're confident. It's really crazy to see it. You see Dak in postgame saying the defense carried us. You see the defensive guys in postgame saying Dak and the offense carried us. Nobody's taking any of the credit. The kicker doesn't even do interviews, who I want to mention real quick because he is the best weapon in the NFL right now. First kicker in NFL history to hit multiple field goals of 59 yards or more in a game. Hit the longest kick in the first quarter in NFL history ever with the 60-yarder. And to that point, that's another part of the Mike McCarthy analytical movement. There's a reason kickers have never hit a 60-yarder in the first quarter because that's a high-risk play. It's if you don't make it, the other team gets the ball. The other team gets the ball midfield, so you don't want to risk it. But McCarthy's saying, no, our kicker can hit this. I trust him enough in a big game to hit this, and I'm sure he'll do it again. So that changes the way you think, the way you run your offense. So Brandon Aubrey is the weapon this year.
You're getting choked up. I love it. I love it.
The voice. Yeah. Oh, that
voice.
That hacking you were doing before the show makes a little more sense now that you're losing your voice. Hey, look, I was just gonna say that I do think they have a different aura about them. The Cowboys do. Like they are a much more confident team. The play calling. Look, give Mike McCarthy credit. He said, "Screw it. I'm not rolling with Kellen Moore anymore." Any longer. He convinced Jerry Jones to let him push Kellen Moore aside and take
like
the
Kellen
wheel.
Moore any more better, by the way.
Yeah, I know, right? And took the wheels in terms of the play calling, and he has been awesome. The play calling has been great. Dak has been fantastic in this West Coast or Texas Coast offense or whatever we're calling it. And you've seen CeeDee Lamb has emerged as one of the, I don't know. I mean, CeeDee Lamb's one of the 5 best receivers in football right now, easily. Like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, AJ Brown, and CeeDee Lamb. Is that the group? Maybe
he's second in the NFL in receiving yards.
Yeah, I mean, I think given like Jamar, I don't know if Damien mentioned. Yeah, I mean, I think Justin Jefferson being banged up, you can make a case CeeDee Lamb's the best receiver in football. Like it wouldn't be that crazy. He has been awesome. He moves all over the place. He's physical. Jake Ferguson, as Breach points out, has broken out this year, and you just have like an offensive line that's playing really well. The running game hadn't even been great, but Rico Dowdle's been a nice supplement to Tony Pollard, who hasn't really filled that explosive role that we thought we would get. It's a really good football team. Michael Gallup's playing well. Brandon Cook's coming on. There's no reason to believe they can't hang with anybody scoring-wise. The defense is playing great football. Dan Quinn's awesome. Micah Parsons killing it. I mean, bull rush Lane Johnson into Jalen Hurts tonight. I think the one concern would be inevitably when this team runs into San Francisco or Philadelphia in the playoffs, does Mike McCarthy
we'll get to that. I mean, let them enjoy it. We don't have to crap on
Breach bot has brainwashed you guys. Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl.
There you go.
I'm just saying we've seen these type of performances from Aaron Rodgers, Packers, Mike McCarthy teams before, and you get to the playoffs and they tighten up and he gets conservative. No, you don't have time for that. It's
week 14. Let him enjoy it. Let Breach enjoy his victory as the Breach bot. I just want to say quickly, Breach, Aubrey, Joe Musso did the math on this, 316 yards of kicking tonight through the goalposts. I don't know where that ranks, but that's fun.